Good day, students and viewers. The course code for today is Math 103 and it is titled Trigonometry and Coordinate Geometry. I am Abdulazeez Idris, your regular Math 103 tutor. In today's video, we are going to look at the trigonometrical ratios of these spatial angles: 0, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270, and 360 degrees. These are spatial angles in which we have not considered in our previous video. And we are going to solve this problem now. And before we solve the problems, we have to think of the Cartesian coordinate system, where we have in the first quadrant, 0 lies here, 0 degrees is somewhere here, but we write something like this. Draw a right angle triangle. Here is theta. This is parallel to y-axis, so it is the same as y. Here is lying on x-axis, so we write x. This is the radius of the circle, a positive radius. So the radius is always a positive whole number. Now, looking at this diagram, if theta is equals to 0 degree, that is for A. If theta is equals to 0 degree, so this diagram, this R will compress, and so when theta is equals to 0 degree, R will compress and lie on the x-axis, and therefore y will compress and tends to 0, because here is 0. When R matches the x-axis, definitely y will compress and becomes of length 0. Therefore, here y is equals to 0, because it will compress and match so that this one will submerge the x-axis. Y is equals to 0. But remember, by Pythagoras theorem, you have r squared is equals to x squared plus y squared. That's hypotenuse is equals to the sum of the squares on the opposite and adjacent. So now r is equals to the square root of, that's taking the square root of both sides, we have x squared plus y squared. But here, y is equals to 0, so r is equals to the square root of x squared plus 0 square. But r is now equals, because 0 square is 0, so you have r is equals to the square root of x squared. These are inverse functions, squares and square roots, so r is equals to x. Now, since r is equals to x and y is equals to 0, so we now look at sine. The sine function is always opposite over hypotenuse, and so sine 0 degree is equals to the opposite over hypotenuse. The opposite is y, but here y is equals to 0, so it is equals to 0 over hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is equals to r, and this is equals to 0 over the hypotenuse r. R is equals to x in this setting, so this is equals to x. So whatever divides 0, the answer is still 0. Therefore, sine 0 is equals to 0. Now we look at cos 0 degree when theta is equals to 0 degree. So cosine is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent is equals to x. So x over hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is equals to r. But in these settings, r is equals to x. So we have x over x, and that's equals to 1. So cos 0 is 1. Now let's look at the tan 0. Tan 0. Tan 0 is adjacent over opposite over adjacent. So y, but y is equals to 0. So see, y is equals to 0 over adjacent. Adjacent is equals to x, and the answer is equals to 0. For tan, it is equals to 0. Now, actually, the other three trigonometrical ratios will follow from these three. And here we will have, instead of sine, we are going to have cosec. So cosec 0 is equals to 1 over, that is x over 0, and that is not defined. Also, sec 0 degree will be equals to x over x, because the x are two identical, so it's equals to 1. And then tan 0 will be equals to, so you have tan, not tan, cot 0 degree is equals to x over 0. So x over 0. And so this is equals to what? Not defined. So because division by 0 is not defined, and so we have infinity. Now, I think we can quickly go ahead and find the answer for B. When theta is equals to theta is equals to 90 degrees, this is what happened. Theta is 90 degrees. So theta is here, and what happened is that you can easily compress this triangle so that R will submerge, the hypotenuse will submerge the y-axis. And so when it matches on the y-axis, what happened? It means that this line y will shift and match here, and so x will be equal to 0. And clearly, so when finding this, so x is equals to 0. I remember we have r is equals to the square root of x squared plus y squared. So this will implies that r is equals to the square root of x is equals to 0, so 0 squared plus y squared, and so r is equals to y when you take the square root, just as we have done it here. So r is equals to y. So what will be sine? We're talking of 90 degrees now. So sine 90 degrees will be equals to opposite over hypotenuse. But the opposite is y. So, and y is equals to, so y over hypotenuse is equals to over r. But in this setting, r is equals to y. So this is equals to y over y, and the answer is equals to 1. So sine 90 is equals to 1. And so we go to cos 90. So cos 90 degrees is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse, and the adjacent is x over the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is what? The hypotenuse adjacent over hypotenuse. But the hypotenuse is equals to r, and that is equals to x over y. But remember, x is equals to 0 here, and so cos 90 is equals to 0 over y, and that's equals to 0, because division by when 0 is divided by any number, the answer is still 0. We have tan 90 degrees. Tan 90 is equals to, so tan is opposite over adjacent, but the opposite is y over adjacent. Adjacent is x, but here y remains y, but x is equals to 0, and so this is not defined. So tan 90 is not defined. Now we look at the other three trigonometrical functions that can be derived from this first three. So we talk about the cot, so we talk about the cosec. Cosec 90 degrees, this is equals to simply y over y, because everything is y, so we say y over y, and this is equals to 1. Now we look at sec 90, that's the other for 9, but sec 90 is just y over 0. So anything divided by 0 is not defined. It's undefined. So we have tan 90, cot 90 degrees, this is equals to 0 over, so 0 over y. And so we have 0 over y, and that's equals to 0. And now we look at 300, we look at, we are done with 90, we go to 180 degrees. So in case you want to find the trigonometrical functions for 180 degrees, you still observe the diagram we had before. So this is y, theta, r. But what happened? 90 degrees, 180 degrees is somewhere here. So it means the point here, P, will come and submerge the terminal line, which is R. That's the radius. The point P will be here on the negative x-axis. And so, when this happens, the line y will be compressed and come to 0. So here y is equals to 0. And so you have r is equals to the square root of x squared plus y squared. So but y is equals to 0. So you have plus 0 squared, and so r is equals to x. R is equals to x. Not necessarily because x is negative here, but even though it's still positive here. But we are dealing with the negative x, so the square, we have to square first before taking the square root. And then this is equals to just x, because r is always a positive distance. Now, we look at sine 180 degrees. So what is sine? Following the trigonometric function and just a way of kind of, notation, we say this is SOH, CAH, TOA. Just an acronym for us to remember the sine, cosine, and tan trigonometrical functions. Sine is equals to opposite over hypotenuse, so this is equals to y over r, and that is equals to, so y is equals to 0, so we have, this is y over r. But y is equals to 0 here, so we have 0 over r. What is r? R is equals to x. So whatever, when 0 is divided with any number, the answer is still 0. So you see sine 180 is equals to 0. We go to cos 180. Cos 180 degrees. Cos 180 degrees is opposite over, cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and the adjacent here is minus x. So because x is equals to minus x here, so we have adjacent, which is equals to minus x over hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is equals to x. So we have minus x over x, and the answer is equals to minus 1. So cos 180 is always minus 1. So we go to tan 180 degrees. So tan is opposite over adjacent x, but x is minus because we are here. So this is y over minus x, but y is equals to 0, so we have 0 over minus x, and the answer is equals to 0. Now the other three trigonometrical functions or ratios are sine. For sine we have cosec 180 degrees, and cosec 180 degrees is the same thing as saying x over 0, but that is not defined. So it is equals to infinity. So cos 180 degrees equals to, so therefore sec 180 degrees will be equals to x over minus x, just the reciprocal of this, but this still gives minus 1. Now tan 180 degrees, this is equals to the reciprocal of this, so minus x over 0, and so because we have minus, and this is equals to minus infinity because it is not defined, or we can simply write infinity. Now we go to 270 degrees. When we talk of 270 degrees, it means the angle is lying somewhere here.